Now, Mr. McInnes, we haven't brought up the Second World War yet. Were you in the Second World War?
Yes, I left here, I believe, in 1943, July, and took my training at Great Lakes, went to their school, a quartermaster school in Great Lakes, and along about February, I believe, then I was transferred, after finishing the school, transferred to Portsmouth or can't even remember those towns. Virginia Beach, Maryland. I'm not too Norfolk, and I think maybe was stationed at Norfolk for maybe 3 or 4 or 5 days until I was reassigned, supposedly to be a teacher on an LST, of which I didn't know anything about.
What is an LST?
An LST was landing ship tanks, and the ship was 325 feet long. Quartermaster on that type of ship primarily is navigation. However, it included signaling and radio and all types of communication, flag signaling and sort of thing. I went aboard the first night on this ship, and the number of the LST was number 32, and that was one of the first of the LSTs made, and it was not completed when I went aboard. The lockers in the various compartments were not welded down, and the first night the ground swells upset things, and those lockers went from side to side, and I thought, if my experience continues this way, I sure hope the war is short.
Yeah, I bet. When did you actually go overseas?
We actually went overseas in March. It took 3 weeks to go from Norfolk, or that area at least, over to the Mediterranean. April 1st, we were some 20 miles off Algiers. At 4 o'clock in the morning, the airplane raids hit us. We had 100 ships in our convoy, and it was just like 4th of July, continuous for some time.
You were actually bombed?
Yes. This, I very thankful all during the war. We never had a direct hit, but we had a lot of close calls.
I see a picture here of the ship.
That ship our LST carried an LCT, which was a much smaller ship on the deck of each of these ships going overseas. They were on skids and they were tied down, and when they got overseas, they lowered the ship on one side and slipped the ship that was on top of our ship, let it slip off into the water, and it go kerplunk.
What I see here in the picture, what is this?
That
is
picture
this
has a balloon on it with cables from 200 to 500 feet long. Were there to prevent airplanes from making a strike on us. As they would come, the cable would catch the plane.
Oh, I thought it was a German Zeppelin.
No, those balloons were sort of blimps, if you want to call them that. They were there to hold that big steel cable up there in the air, and were there to catch any plane that wanted to come down and give us a little strafing. If it come down within the realm of that cable, why, that was the end of the plane.
I see on this ship here, on this photograph, there are soldiers wall to wall. I mean, they are just in... How many was on a ship? How many soldiers?
These LSTs might carry 1,000 or more soldiers on the way to a landing. Generally, we would maybe have equipment, tanks, and men, all equipment that maybe would take care of 300, 400, 500 people. In some cases, as few maybe as 200 men, and maybe 40 tanks. General Sherman tanks, those were 40-ton tanks.
When did you land in Marseille, in France?
That landing in Marseille was on the second or the southern France invasion, and I can't tell you exactly the time. Possibly in May, may have been about the time. It was in 1945, I believe, getting closer to the end of the war in Europe.
Yeah, in 1944, you were in Tunisia, in North Africa. The entire bay there must have been 10,000 soldiers there.
That picture is at Bizerte, Tunisia, and that was, I think, possibly in April when we were there, went over there. I think that was about the time. I do remember one of the incidents of that area from the April 1st raid. We were to stop at Algiers, but we went on 1,000 miles more farther and landed at Bizerte, Tunisia. And I can remember it was pretty warm there. I had told everybody I wasn't going to shed my shirt at all, but pretty soon I got such rash that I had to shed it in order to survive. And I got terribly sunburned from getting it off too soon. But that landing at Bizerti, one of the interesting things, a commander of some unit came to bring us in rather than allowing our own skipper or captain to control the ship. This commander took over, and he run over a submarine right there in the harbor and punched a hole in the bottom of our ship. That was one of the incidents there. Another, I was on the bridge signaling with a light for a matter of 3 hours, and it was just absolutely cooked by the high temperature there. I don't remember exactly where, but there was a location where we were for a little time with the temperatures of 140 degrees. And
I see here
another thing that I can remember about Bizerti, Tunisia, was where the Germans controlled the oil and water lines, and the United States and Britain took over there on, I believe, as I remember, 601 Hill. There were 6,000 dead, and the stench was terrible. You could smell it for miles.
I'm looking at a picture here where you were in Anzino, Italy.
Anzio.
Anzio,
Yes.
Italy, where the German prisoners are brought off the ship.
Anzio was
Where
one
did
of,
you capture the Germans?
Anzio was one of the very hot spots in Italy when Clark and some other general disagreed. They went on, way on, and then backed up and held there at Anzio for months and months. And we were in that location to bring supplies and take the prisoners back or wherever, whatever, 13 different times. One of the incidents of Anzio, we took the soldiers up there to fight, and the story was that if they survived for 3 hours, they were a veteran. If they survived for 2 weeks, they got a 3-week vacation, and then back to fight again. And we made 13 trips into that location.
Now this is a lovely, lovely picture here. In what country were you during the war?
This picture was taken about Christmas or Thanksgiving. Our ship fed the orphans from an orphanage at Palermo, Sicily, I believe, for either Thanksgiving or Christmas.
And you were there 9 months.
We were in Palermo, Sicily for 9 months. And one of those times we even came back to Palermo after the whole affair was over, and made a trip over to Greece and then back to Palermo again for another Christmas dinner. And then I don't remember just what transpired there.
All right, now we'll start on something else. I don't even know where to begin here. You have so many occupations. You went from a one-room schoolhouse.
I got my education, yes, in a one-room schoolhouse, and I'm very proud of that because it gave me a good background for going on to high school. I tried to go through high school in 3 years. This was in Depression times because there were 2 years that we lived in Urbana. The third and fourth years we lived at Sydney, and I farmed 160 acres of land along with it. I wanted to get through in 3 years if possible, but the school would not allow that. I still had to go for one class of English. And of course I took other classes along with it, so I got more credits. Then later, after the war, I went to Chicago to college, Mortician College, and graduated there, got my state license, and practiced with Bowman Funeral Home. Was with them for 25 years. I tried one of the interesting things. I tried to get a license in some other states, and in Arizona, for instance, there were 32 licenses in the state, and they were not about to give another unless I purchased a funeral home there, and the ones that were for sale were 300,000. And this is one of the problems that I see with the various state licenses. They try to restrict the issuance, regardless of a person's ability. They just don't want you.
You went on and took other classes.
Yes, after getting my license as a mortician, I received a scholarship to a school of management through Wilbert Vault in Evanston, and I really got a lot of benefit from that. Along with this, of course, one of the things that helped me all through the years was bookkeeping and accountancy. Through the years, I've had, I had a year of bookkeeping in high school. Then I had a year in college, in Mortician College. And then I had a 3 weeks special course in accountancy in that school of management. And then I had a course in Decatur in bookkeeping and accountancy later, just to learn a little bit more about the business. sometime later, I don't remember what year, I got into the real estate business, and I took 2 semesters in University of Illinois, one in law and one in finance, as a part of this real estate requirements. And then they didn't teach that anymore, the rest of it. So later I went to the Illinois Commercial College, and they were hooked up with Weaver's college and taught the real estate requirements, and shortly I got my license on that.
I see here's you were connected with the Salvation Army
Yes.
for 12 years?
Yes. I operated,
Where was that?
owned and operated the Monticello Hotel here from 1956 until 1984. And during that time, I was chairman of the Monticello Salvation Army. Had charge of all of the work of care of the Salvation Army here in Monticello during that time. One of the things, we had a budget of, I think, of either $200 or $400, and I operated this largely on a revolving fund. If people needed a little help, I would help them. Then, as they were able to pay this back, it went back into that fund. And it did operate very well that way for a lot of people. Not all, because on one occasion we had 7 young people. I'm talking about teenagers, maybe first year college, or maybe not even that old, were brought in by the state police. Their car broke down between here and White Heath, and they didn't know what to do. They were broke, and their car was broke down. I said, first thing, you go to bed, and tomorrow morning we'll see what we can do. And the next morning we found out what was necessary. I called the local wrecker, and he brought them in for nothing, no charges, and we put the car here in the facilities of the Heritage Center, and I made various calls. One of those boys knew something about tearing up the car. It had 2 broken axles, and bearings were out. So they worked on that during that day, and I was able to get the cooperation of about 30 different people locating the necessary parts for that car, and the facilities to put it together included 2 12-ton jacks or power presses to put this stuff together, and they were able to get their car together, and we got them on their way before midnight the second day. In during that time, Salvation Army furnished them the room and something to eat. And they, of course, promised to send something back to the Heritage or to the Salvation Army, but that was the last we heard of those. They were from Arizona.
That was nice.
But we had about 30 different people assisting to help get those kids going.
Kids could use a lot of help like that nowadays.
Right.
That type of help. I notice you belong to a lot of clubs and organizations.
Community Club was a very important club here in Monticello for possibly 50 years, and finally was disbanded in favor of Chamber of Commerce. The Community Club took care of most everything in the community. And later, we had community chess. They had charge of that. And all the youth programs, financing these. I don't know, along about 1960, I was president of the community club before that, and then the community chest. Along about 1960, I was able to head that, and I think that was the first time we were ever able to raise the quota, and that was about $4,500, something like that.
You also belong to the Toastmaster Club?
Yes, the Toastmaster Club, I was with that for 5 years, and back in 1962, the community had promotions or festivals here of Western Week, and I was the last chairman of that. We had arranged on that last Western Week to pay all of our expenses. We had paid a lot of the things ready for the next and records, so we could go right ahead with the next Western Week. And that Western Week occupied, I think, from one Saturday to include the next Saturday. In other words, it was about 7 or 10 day affair, and we had entertainment, a carnival. We had a parade a mile or 2 miles long.
That was in Monticello?
In Monticello. The parade was all horses, and in order to get the horses, one of our chairmen was able to work with the Amish so that they brought the horses up from Arthur. And we had such interesting things as fast draw contest, in which one of the contestants didn't understand the rules and was going to use real bullets.
Oh no! That wouldn't have worked, would it?
No.
My goodness.
We did on the Western Week started with a barbecue in which one of the leading citizens, farmers, contributed a beef, and then it extended on, and the thing that they tried to start with, to get everybody to wear a Western hat. Just a hat. And it was such a success that we went on to have other things as years went on. And the year that I was chairman, we had 2 or 3 different nights in which we had more than 10,000 people around the square.
And that was the end of the Western,
that was the end of it. We served 5,000 people a barbecue free.
When are we going to have some more like that?
Well, I don't know. We've been talking about this here with the Heritage Center, but it takes money to do these things. And my thought, and the thought of many people working with us on this, had we charged 50 cents or $1 on that barbecue, we would have come out with the entire thing paid in full.
You are, by word of mouth, somewhat of an authority on beekeeping. How did you get started?
Well, on the beekeeping end, this happened back, I suppose, about 1925 or 6, somewhere in there. I had been saving my money from trapping, and every once in a while we would have a swarm of bees come into our orchard and hang on a peach tree, and we didn't have any way of taking care of them, and so after a while they would go on. And my idea was that as hard times are, if you can have somebody else doing the work and bringing in the money as bees do, then I would have it made.
That's right.
So I got a hive, maybe from, I don't know what, maybe from Sears Roebuck or maybe from somebody, I don't know where. And when there was a swarm come on a peach tree that we had in our orchard, Dad showed me how to do it. He come and helped me do it. We put those bees in that hive, and from there on I picked up several that year. Don't remember that there was much return that year, but I went on to get more bees, and then that winter I bought somebody's whole apiary. They're 30 or 40 stands of bees. So I was in the bee business.
What is the function? I know the pollinating and all that, but what is the whole function with the bees besides getting honey from them and pollinating and the colonies? And
I've forgotten so many things because I haven't had bees since about 1940.
how do you train a bee to come back
You
to
don't
their
train
home?
them; they do that on their own. Bees will let's say this. The colony is a family, so to speak. There's the queen bee, which lays in her prime, will lay about 2,000 eggs a day. And the workers they bring in the honey, they bring in the pollen, and chew it up and make the wax there to make this honeycomb.
Oh, I thought you bought the honeycomb.
No. Where would it come from?
From the store?
The bees make this. You can buy...
but they're perfect.
They make it perfect. They make it perfect. You can buy a foundation that is made from beeswax, pressed beeswax, so that it is a foundation for them to work on, so that your entire comb or frame is the same all across. Worker cells are all approximately the same size. If by some reason there's the queen becomes weak or feeble, the workers will tear down the worker cells and make a queen cell. And the difference between workers and the queen is a matter of what they are fed. The queen, if she is, or these, the larvae, they start out exactly the same. But if they are fed this special food, and I can't remember now the name, but it takes 21 days to develop a worker bee. But a queen will be developed I think in 18 days. And by feeding this special food. A drone, it takes, is the male, and it comes from an unfertilized egg. And it is, it's like that. These drones, there may be many of them in a hive, provided the queen becomes old or not laying as many eggs as she might do, and so they prepare to have a new queen, and they will have anywhere from 2 to 10 queen cells made at one time. If the hive begins to, if the summertime gets overpopulated, then they will also develop more queen cells, and the first one out will take a bunch of the bees with them, and then another one, and another one, until they're dwindled down, there's not much left. If by any chance the queen is killed or dies, the workers will immediately tear down a worker cell and make a queen cell out of it, and hurry and feed them this special feed and develop a queen.
Isn't that fantastic?
That is the way it's done.
That is fantastic.
And must be done within a certain period of time, of course. But they generally are able to work that.
I don't
Very
want to.
seldom do you find that a hive becomes extinct because there is no queen or no possibility of a queen.
They have a good system, don't they?
Yes. They develop a queen of their own. Immediately, as soon as that queen is dead or something happens.
That marvelous. Now from bees to the ambulance. We were talking about, you delivered a baby.
Yes, back during the time when I was working with Mr. Ballman in the funeral business, he also operated an ambulance to any and all who called and needed help. And I can remember one occasion I believe it was on New Year's Day, I got a call to go and take somebody to the hospital, and I got to the house, and the assistant with me, we got there, and we knew it was going to be too late to get to the hospital, so we delivered the baby right in the front room.
Now, how did you know what to do?
Well, I guess you maybe do some things by instinct. Of course, I grew up on a farm with lots of animals.
All right, just in case I have to deliver it.
And
What do you?
not only that,
What would you do with the navel?
We were
cord?
taught this in college, in the funeral business.
Where would you cut the navel cord? You cut it. You tie it off close to the baby.
It should be, well, as far as we were concerned, it's not legal for us.
Just in case on my way home I have to deliver one.
We allowed about a foot and tie it. Let the doctor take care of it.
Oh, and the baby's safe?
Yes. In fact, we took the baby and the mother to the hospital and did not cut the cord.
Oh, well, that would be better, wouldn't it? Yeah.
This was the... we try to do everything legal.
Yeah. Okay, I just thought, just in case on the way home, I might have to.
Yeah.
Now I want to get on something which Monticello is very, very proud of, and which you are the #1 man over our museum, the Heritage Museum in Monticello.
Heritage Center started back in 1965. There were 3 merchants that met at 5 o'clock in the morning at breakfast, figuring a way to improve the economy, and we first tried a Pioneer Trail, and that trail was set up throughout Piatt County, 57 miles long. We got signs, and we had an unusual thing. We had a full page on the front page of the News-Gazette telling about the wonders of Piatt County and Monticello and this pioneer land. And the trail, in my estimation, was never a success other than it got a little publicity. We had no way to get any money back because the paper had published a map of the entire, so we couldn't even sell maps. And we tried going with a bus, taking people on a bus. And after the first bus, it was a complete failure. We didn't have anybody to go. So then the next project, we still met 5 o'clock in the morning and decided that the Red House was about to be condemned. It really wasn't in as bad shape as it looked. And we went there at 5 in the morning.
What's the Red House?
That's the brick house over here. That's the Pioneer Museum over here. And it's, we went in there at 5 in the morning, looked at it, and that day put down $50 down payment on an agreement to pay $50 a month. Purchasing these at about I don't know what, $5,000 or $6,000 something. So then we bought that, and with the help of about 60 families of the community, restored that in a matter of 6 weeks. And one of the interesting things, we did not know even the day before whether we would have enough things to fill that museum or even have a museum. But we had many people working on this. Interesting, one of the people that worked until midnight or after was Mr. and Mrs. Herb Kaiser, putting down a carpet in one room, their special room, to get it ready. The Musgroves from Mansfield were the real sugar daddies of this whole organization. I'm not sure, but I would guess that through the 20 years that we've been in operation, they have contributed well over $200,000 to this project. We have had as many as 50,000 visitors in 1 year.
What was the admission?
Generally $1. Now, the admission today is $1.50. And we have not changed that in probably 15 years. We started with the Red House, opened on, I believe, the 18th of September. And between there and the first of the year, we had 5,000 visitors. The second year included a purchase of this building. We had 19,000 visitors. Mr. Musgrove gave me a check to pay for this building while he was in the hospital following an accident in which the train knocked him off the track and in a car. He was in a car and the train hit him. And he gave me a check to cover this building. The next year, or maybe that year, we brought in Ray McIntyre from Danville with his Rayville Museum, and opened over there at Rayville, and about that same time we purchased what we called the Illinois building, which is today is the county courthouse annex. We had that for a couple of years and had to back up because of financial troubles. We had theater in that building. We had the dolls in there, many other exhibits in that building. And we had the Indian dances, festivals over there. The Buffalo barbecues generally would bring in about 25,000 people.
Now, where would all this money go to? To the benefit of Monticello, or?
To the maybe astonishment of everybody, the volunteer help was no longer available after about 6 weeks. We couldn't run down volunteer help. And we had to pay everybody to do things. And this is where all the money went, for help. And pretty soon we began to get behind her all the time. When the financial failure hit in 57, no, it's not 57, 67, Mrs. Mossgrove and I stayed to get this out of debt. And in 4.5 years, by scrimping and just shutting down this or that, we were able to get out of debt, and it amounted to over $400,000. $400,000.
Is Mr. and Mrs. Mossgrove, are they still living?
Mr. Mossgrove is dead, see. Mrs. Mossgrove is still living.
That's who he is.
Yes. Mr. Mossgrove started in this town as a boy working at 5 cents a week. And it was his hope and desire to do something for Monticello because it gave him a start.
That's wonderful.
Yes. And he did. And Mrs. Mossgrove was the curator here and worked until the last 2 or 3 years. She was here every day. All these years.
Now I hear your wife working,
Yes.
doing everything here.
Yes. Mrs. Mossgrove had a master's degree in English and a master's in history. And she researched the history of Platte County, and she's written books on genealogy. She still works at this genealogy. She's not able.
Have you ever had foreign visitors here?
We've had thousands of visitors registered from every state of the Union and from about 47 countries of the world. The most, I would feel the most astonishing to me was the fact that we had two men that told me they came especially here to see Rayville about the trains, and they came from Spain to see these.
The steam engines.
No, these are miniatures. Rayville is a miniature deal. It's a model railroad. It's operating railroad.
Is that
model,
open every day?
and it's open every day. Ray McInnes started this years ago. He's probably worked at that, putting that together for 40 years. He was an orphan to start with. Born and raised down about Marshall, Illinois. And then came on up to Danville through the years and had a little museum in a very small church there. The museum he had was possibly a third the size we have Rayville today. And in 1966 we brought him here, and he's been here ever since. So
You mean Monticello has all that, and I've lived here 8 years and I didn't know it?
didn't even know. This is just very common. Many people of this town have never been to Allerton Park. Definitely most of them have never been in the mansion. Don't know anything about it.
No,
And probably
I go
care
to
less.
Allerton Park a lot.
I would guess that half the people, or maybe more than half, have never been in the Heritage Center.
I'm going to be
And
coming.
no less. We have about, I think about 80 or 90 lifetime members in our organization, and about an equal number of annual members. And
Well, the word should get out. If I can help it, first I have to practice what I preach. I'm going to be going, and I'm going to take my grandson to see the trains and the museum. And the word should really get out what we do have in this town here. You also said the Swedish...
This Swedish mansion down at Voorhees, this Voorhees Castle, had been closed for I don't know how many years, possibly 40 years or something. I don't know how long. But ever since Mr. Larson's wife had died, they closed it up, and nobody was in there other than the caretakers, an occasional. Then it was given to the Heritage Center by the heirs, and we opened in July, I believe, of 66 or 7, 67 maybe. What is that? 67?
Yes.
July the 12th. And we had people lined up 4 or 5, 6 deep for 2 blocks long, as we would look at, blocks, or maybe even as much as 4 blocks, clear out from the house, clear out to the road, waiting to get in. and cars were lined up on both sides of the road for 3/4 of a mile in every direction. We finally had to get the sheriff's forces out to clear the path so that people could get out. We had 3,000 paid people going through that house that afternoon. And that's a lot of people. The attraction actually was the clock tower of that barn. That barn was built way back when Mr. Larson bought the farm. He built a good barn, but some of the neighbors built something bigger and better, and he didn't want to be outdone. So rather than tear the barn down and do something else there, he came to Monticello and ordered this clock and put that clock there with a face on each side so that it could be read from any corner of the farm. This castle originally had a tower up there on these corners that extended 3 stories, but finally he didn't like that, so they come down to two stories. But you could look out the windows from these towers and see any corner of that farm, any of it. It was built in such a way that they could actually see what was going on that farm.
Well, Mr. McInnes, we're coming to the end of the most interesting interview. I enjoyed it, and I want to thank you. It's been quite an experience, and I will come and see your museum.
Well, it's been a pleasure to do this.
Thank you.